Life has a way of crossing the paths of those who have lost everything with those who seem to have it all. And what you are about to hear isn't just a story, it's a journey of heartbreak, hope, and a second chance at love. Stay with me until the very end, because this story will touch your heart in a way you'll never forget. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel Kindness Stories, where we share life-changing tales of compassion and hope every day. It was a freezing winter night in Chicago. The snow glistened under streetlights, but the cold wind cut through the air like knives. To most, the city looked alive and beautiful. But for Grace, it was merciless. She sat outside the diner where she worked as a waitress, shivering in her worn-out coat. Her shift had ended, but she had no home to return to, only the shelter, if there was space, or the streets if there wasn't. Grace was only 23, yet her life already felt like a lifetime of battles. Her father had abandoned her when she was a child, and her mother died after a long illness. Alone, poor, and struggling, she clung to the only thing her mother had left her, a tattered Bible that she kept hidden in a locker at the shelter. She had once dreamed of being a teacher, but life had torn those dreams apart, leaving her with nothing but survival. That night in the diner, a man sat quietly in the corner with his little girl asleep against his arm. He had been there for hours, drinking coffee and saying little. He didn't look like the usual customers. His eyes were tired, but not restless. They carried a weight Grace recognized, the weight of grief. She noticed the tenderness with which he brushed a strand of hair from his daughter's cheek, and it made her heart ache. When Grace approached to clear the plates, the man spoke softly. "She's had a rough time lately." Grace glanced at the girl. She was small, beautiful, and innocent. "She looks like an angel." "How old is she?" "6, he replied, his voice faltering slightly. "Her name is Sophie. Her mother passed away a few months ago." Grace froze. The words hit her like a stone. She knew the pain of losing a mother. She swallowed hard and whispered, "I'm so sorry." The man looked at her with quiet intensity. "What's your name?" "Grace." "I'm Michael," he said, extending his hand. She shook it, and in that brief moment she felt something strange. His handshake was strong but gentle. There was more to this man than his simple clothes suggested. And she was right. Michael Bennett wasn't just another grieving father, he was one of the wealthiest men in the city. A billionaire who owned vast chains of hotels and properties across the country. But none of that mattered tonight. Tonight, he wasn't a billionaire, he was just a father, broken and searching for something money couldn't buy. Michael started coming back to the diner regularly. Sometimes he brought Sophie, sometimes he came alone. He would sit quietly, order coffee, and watch Grace work. She was different from the other waitresses. She didn't try to charm customers for tips. She worked humbly, silently, with dignity, even when her manager scolded her unfairly. One evening, after Grace finished her shift, she stepped out into the biting cold. She hugged her coat tightly around herself when suddenly a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, and to her shock, Michael was inside. "Grace," he said, "let me drive you. It's freezing out here." She hesitated, shaking her head. "I can't. I don't really have a place. I usually stay at the shelter." Michael's expression changed, part confusion, part heartbreak. "You don't have a home?" Grace shook her head, embarrassed. Something inside Michael broke at that moment. The woman who had shown such kindness to his daughter, who smiled through her own pain, was sleeping on the streets. He couldn't leave her there. "Please, Grace," he urged. "Get in." That night, for the first time in years, Grace sat inside warmth and safety. Michael brought her to one of his hotels and gave her a room. He asked for nothing in return. At first, she wanted to refuse, but when Sophie ran up and hugged her with innocent joy, Grace's heart softened. As days turned into weeks, Grace grew closer to Sophie. She brushed her hair, helped with homework, and even tucked her into bed when Michael was caught up in late-night business meetings. Slowly, Sophie began to smile again. The laughter that had died with her mother returned, because of Grace. Michael noticed it all. One evening, as Grace quietly left Sophie's room after reading her a bedtime story, Michael stood waiting in the hallway. His eyes were filled with something deeper than gratitude. "Grace," he said softly, "I don't just want to thank you for what you've done for Sophie. I want to ask you something that might change everything." Grace's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Be my wife, and be her mother." Grace stared at him, her breath caught in her throat. She thought she must have misheard. Michael's eyes didn't waver. "I know it sounds sudden. I know your life hasn't been easy. Mine hasn't either. But Grace, you're the first person who's made Sophie laugh again. The first person who's made me feel hope. I don't care where you come from or what you've lost. I care about you. Marry me. Not just for me, but for her." Grace's hands shook. This was impossible. This was unreal. And yet, it was happening. Grace couldn't sleep that night. She lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling as Michael's words echoed inside her mind. Be my wife. Be her mother. It wasn't just a proposal, it was a lifeline. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? The next morning at breakfast, Sophie climbed into Grace's lap with a bright smile. "Grace, will you stay with us forever?" she asked, her small voice full of hope. That question pierced Grace's heart more than Michael's words ever could. This wasn't just about adults, it was about a child who longed for love. Michael entered the room, dressed for work but with tenderness in his eyes. "Grace," he said, "I meant every word last night. I'm not asking you out of pity. I'm asking because you've brought Sophie back to life. And, you've brought me back too." Grace felt her throat tighten. She wanted to believe him, but her fears screamed louder. "Michael, I'm just a homeless waitress. People will laugh at you. The press will destroy me. I don't belong in your world." Michael reached for her trembling hand. "Grace, do you think I care about their world? I've had money and power all my life. But none of it mattered when I lost my wife. None of it matters if Sophie grows up without a mother. And none of it matters without love. You belong with us, Grace, not because of what you have, but because of who you are." Tears filled Grace's eyes. For the first time, someone didn't see her poverty. He saw her heart. That evening, Michael took Grace and Sophie to the rooftop of his hotel. The city lights sparkled below them, but all Grace saw was Sophie's joy and Michael's steady gaze. Michael knelt down, not with a diamond ring but with sincerity shining brighter than any jewel. "Grace," he whispered, "I don't want perfection. I want the woman who held my daughter when she cried. The woman who worked tirelessly even with nothing. The woman who reminded me that love still exists. Be my wife, and be her mother." Grace collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Michael. I will." Sophie squealed and hugged them both tightly. For the first time in years, Grace felt she wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't just surviving, she had a home, not built of walls, but of love. Their wedding wasn't about headlines or wealth. It was simple, intimate, and filled with love. A billionaire and a homeless waitress. A father and his daughter. And a woman who had finally found where she belonged. As Grace walked down the aisle in a modest white dress, she realized something life-changing. Sometimes, life doesn't give us what we ask for. It gives us exactly what we need. So remember, kindness can change everything. Don't lose hope, no matter how dark life feels. Because love often finds us in the most unexpected ways. And before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel Kindness Stories for more heart-touching tales that remind us of the power of compassion.